So in today's podcast, we're going to look at the 5 autistic love languages, and these are mechanisms of authentic connection. Now, the most frequently identified autistic love languages are not simply replacements for the traditional 5 love languages. They're mechanisms of communication tailored to accommodate autistic cognitive and sensory needs. So we're going to look at all 5, and here's the first one. Info dumping. This is the language of shared passion and cognitive connection. Info dumping is the act of sharing a large, often continuous amount of information about a special interest or topic of deep passion. For the autistic individual, this is a vital form of connection, emotional regulation, and expression of intense joy. This behavior is fundamentally linked to the autistic brain's highly focused processing style, which excels at synthesizing details and patterns within specific domains. The thorough and detailed nature of the information shared is a direct reflection of this deep, specialized understanding. Info dumping serves as an invitation, revealing the inner landscape of the autistic person's mind and expressing affection through the sharing of what truly captivates them. The second love language is parallel play or body doubling. This is the intimacy of shared space. Parallel play or body doubling is a low-pressure form of quality time where individuals engage in separate activities alongside one another in the same space without the expectation of constant interaction. This is a crucial adaptation of the traditional quality time love language. For many autistic individuals, just being near others can be overwhelming. Parallel play offers comfort and allows for coexistence in a socially manageable way. It's an expression of love through reliable, non-demanding presence, allowing the autistic person to maintain routine, explore interest at their own pace, and avoid sensory overload. The third autistic love language is penguin pebbling. In other words, symbolic tokens of observation. Penguin pebbling involves spontaneously giving small, meaningful gifts or tokens, such as smooth pebbles, a relevant trinket, or flowers that remind the giver of the recipient. This unique form of communication originates from the mating ritual of penguins, which offers pebbles for nest building as a symbol of commitment and partnership. Unlike conventional gift giving tied to holidays or monetary value, pebbling is fundamentally spontaneous and symbolic. The value lies entirely in the intention and the demonstrable proof that the giver has observed and remembered something deeply meaningful about the recipient. It serves as a natural, nonverbal method of expressing affection for autistic individuals who find spoken words challenging due to social anxiety or communication differences. The third autistic love language is deep pressure. This is the kinesthetic language of regulation and security. Deep pressure is a form of physical contact involving firm therapeutic touch, such as the use of weighted blankets, a deep pressure massage, or a comforting bear hug. This input is often essential for sensory regulation, providing comfort and security. Many neurodivergent individuals describe the sensation of deep pressure as soothing body stress responses, metaphorically referring to it as crushing my soul back into my body. Deep pressure is highly individualized and necessitates strict consent. As traditional physical touch may be overwhelming due to sensory sensitivities, deep pressure requires intentional, explicit communication to ensure the experience is positive and comfortable. The categorization of this need as a love language functionally elevates sensory accommodation from a support strategy to a core imperative for relational intimacy. Failing to accommodate this need is perceived not merely as a lack of support, but as a failure to express love. The fifth and final autistic love language is support swapping or sharing spoons. In other words, the compassion for capacity. Support swapping, also known as spoon swapping, is a practice of traditional tasks or taking on responsibilities that a loved one may not have the cognitive or physical capacity, in other words, spoons, to complete on a given day. This practice uses spoon theory to identify and conserve energy levels. Each activity consumes a certain number of limited daily spoons, and when a neurodivergent partner is overwhelmed or experiences high executive functioning demands, offering one's spoons through support swapping is a demonstration of tangible compassion. Offering one's spoons demonstrates a concrete understanding of a loved one's fluctuating needs and limitations, specifically targeting stress reduction and sensory accommodation by alleviating tasks that might trigger overload. So these are the 5 autistic love languages. And the mechanisms of all of these demonstrate a reliance on nonverbal signals and deep shared knowledge, suggesting that autistic love languages function as high context communication. Hey, this is Mark, and in this video I want to talk about when autism and ADHD collide and why these marriages have double the communication hurdles. Have you ever wondered why communication in an AuDHD marriage, that's a marriage where one or both partners have autism and ADHD, can feel like trying to translate 2 completely different languages at the same time? So if you're married to someone with AuDHD, or you have autism and ADHD traits, you're navigating a relationship dynamic where routine meets impulsivity, alexithymia meets emotional intensity, and a need for predictability meets a brain that thrives on novelty. Whew. And that combination can create double the misunderstandings, even when both partners have good intentions. So today I'm going to break this down in a way that finally makes sense, and then give you specific communication scripts you can start using today in your AuDHD marriage. So let's get to it. AuDHD describes people who have both autism and ADHD traits. Now, on their own, each comes with unique communication patterns. But when they stack on top of each other, you get a relationship dynamic where the autistic side wants order, clarity, routine, and directness, but the ADHD side brings impulsivity, scattered attention, emotional swings, and bursts of hyperfocus. Now, this doesn't mean that one partner is too much and the other is too rigid, but it does mean the marriage is running 2 operating systems simultaneously. One operating system says, please don't change the plan without warning. The other operating system says, I didn't even realize I changed the plan until after I did. And both operating systems are telling the truth. Now, there are 2 big communication barriers in the AuDHD marriage that most couples don't understand. Number 1, alexithymia. The feelings are there, but the words are missing. Most autistic adults, and many ADHD adults as well, struggle with identifying, labeling, or expressing emotions. Now, it's not that the person doesn't care, it's that the translation system between internal experience and spoken languages glitches. So the NT partner may ask, how do you feel about what I just said? And the AuDHD partner is thinking, honestly, don't know yet. Give me a minute to decode it. And that delay is often interpreted by the NT spouse as coldness, avoidance, shutting down, not caring, etc. But in reality, the AuDHD person is overwhelmed by too many emotions or none they can name. Second barrier, the routine versus impulsivity collision. This is a core communication struggle when autism and ADHD traits overlap. The autistic need for certainty and predictability collides with the ADHD style of rapid decision-making, impulsive changes, forgetting agreements, intense emotional outbursts, and starting things before thinking through the consequences. Imagine this scenario. The ASD side says, please tell me before you make changes. And the ADHD side responds, I will. But then the ADHD brain hits action mode and boom, something changes before awareness catches up. This results in a partner who feels constantly blindsided and a partner who feels constantly misunderstood. It's not a moral failure. It's not a lack of love. It's just neurobiology. Now, in AuDHD marriages, communication does not improve by guessing what the other person meant. It improves through explicit rules. Think of these not as restrictions, but as access ramps that allow each partner to understand the other. So here are the 3 most important communication rules for AuDHD couples. Rule number 1, state before you feel. Alexithymia makes emotional processing slow, so don't start with feelings, start with data, not interpretation. Here's your script. Something about the situation is affecting me, but I'm not sure how I feel yet. I need a little time to identify it. So can we come back in about 10 minutes or so? So that script removes pressure and prevents shutdown or emotional overwhelm. Rule number 2, announce transitions out loud. ADHD brains shift gears quickly. Autistic partners don't. So adopt the habit of verbalizing transitions before doing them. Here's your script. I'm about to switch tasks. I want to let you know so it doesn't feel sudden. And you would be amazed how this one line reduces conflict by a good 70%. Rule number 3, assume confusion, not intention. Instead of assuming the partner meant to ignore your emotional needs or meant to break the routine, assume a neurological misfire. Because 95% of the time, that's exactly what's going on. And here's your script. I don't think you were trying to upset me. I think our brains are just handling this differently. So let's walk through what happened. And this reduces defensiveness instantly. Now let's look at 5 communication scripts couples can use word for word. Use them during conflicts, misunderstandings, or emotional overwhelm. Script number 1. This is for when emotions are hard to identify. And you can say, something's happening inside of me. I'm not sure what it is, but I want you to know I'm working on naming it. Script number 2. This is when ADHD impulsivity causes a sudden change. And you can say, okay, I shifted gears without realizing it. I know that probably felt abrupt, but here's what's happening inside of my head. Script number 3. This is when the ASD partner needs predictability. And you can say, before you make a change, even a small one, I need a quick heads up so my brain doesn't go into panic mode. Script 4. When conversation becomes overwhelming, you can say, I want to keep talking, but I'm getting overloaded. Can we take a 5-minute pause and come back calmer? Script 5. This is when both partners want to repair. You can say, I care about us. Let's slow down, reset, and talk through this like 2 people on the same team. Now, these scripts give both partners words to use when words feel impossible, structure when the moment feels chaotic, and clarity when communication breaks down. Now, on a final note, AuDHD marriages are not broken, but they're very complex. So when autism's need for consistency meets ADHD's spontaneity, you don't get dysfunction. You get a marriage that needs a manual written in both languages. And when you understand how these 2 wiring patterns collide and complement each other, communication becomes not only possible, but predictable, stable, and deeply connecting. Are you exhausted from walking on eggshells, trying to manage your autistic husband's reactions while your own nervous system feels tired and burnt out? If you've ever said, I can't live like this forever, you're not alone. So today, I'm going to teach you 3 powerful practical strategies that neurotypical partners can start using immediately to protect their energy, regulate their nervous system, and stop living in the constant state of hypervigilance. Now, listen, I'm not here to tell you how to fix your ASD partner. I'm not trashing him. I'm sure he's a great guy. I would like him just fine. But I'm here to help you get emotionally steady, grounded, and clear so you can stop the painful walking on eggshells cycle. So let's get started. Most NT partners don't walk on eggshells because they're weak. They do it because they're chronically overstimulated, emotionally undersupported, and trying to prevent conflict or shutdowns. Your nervous system has learned that any wrong tone, wrong timing, or wrong phrasing, heaven forbid, can lead to misunderstanding, overwhelm, or withdrawal, or he just feels criticized and, well, now we're back to having an adult temper tantrum, aren't we? So your body starts predicting danger. The solution is not to communicate more softly or more perfectly. You've already tried that. The real solution is to create emotional structures that protect your energy instead of leaving yourself open and exposed all day long. So let's go through the 3 strategies that begin breaking that cycle immediately. Strategy 1, create a weekly sacred space-time. Most NT partners feel drained because they never get uninterrupted emotional breathing room. A weekly sacred space-time is a non-negotiable block, 30 minutes, 1 hour, or even a full evening, designated for grounding, decompression, refilling your emotional tank, and thinking clearly without pressure. This is not necessarily self-care, it's nervous system maintenance. So how can you introduce it to your ASD husband? You can use this script for the first time you bring it up to him. Here it is. I'm realizing that I function better and communicate better when I have time every week to decompress and reset. Starting this week, I'm setting aside an hour of sacred space time for myself. I'm letting you know ahead of time so it's structured, not personal. No offense. This does 2 things. It stops your ASD partner from interpreting your absence as rejection, and it signals that emotional responsibility is shared, not carried entirely by you. So during this sacred space time, you can journal, walk, meditate, do nothing, sit in silence, work on hobbies, listen to calming music, whatever you want to do. The practice itself doesn't matter. What matters is that you regularly move your body out of hypervigilance and into regulation. Strategy 2, use pre-made scripts for low energy days. One of the biggest reasons NT spouses burn out is because communication requires constant emotional labor. Translating your needs, cushioning his reactions, micromanaging tone, anticipating misunderstandings, making sure that your timing is right with your message delivery, and so on. So when your energy is already low, communication feels impossible and it feels like a heavy burden. This is where low energy scripts save you. You can pre-write short, neutral, emotionally clean phrases to use when you have nothing left in the tank. And these scripts keep communication clear without requiring your nervous system to push past exhaustion. So here are a few powerful examples. Script 1, when you're feeling overwhelmed. I'm too mentally tired to communicate well right now. I'm going to take some space and we'll talk when I've reset. Script 2, when your partner wants to engage but you can't. Okay, I hear that this is important to you. I can give it my attention later today or tomorrow morning. Script 3, when a conversation is escalating. Here's your script. I want this to go well. I need a pause so I don't shut down or get reactive. And script 4, when you need clarity before responding, you can say, I need a moment to process this. I'll get back to you. So using these scripts is not manipulative. It's self-protection and communication hygiene. So why do these scripts work? Well, they remove fear, they remove panic, they remove emotional overfunctioning, and they remove trying to guess what the right words are. When you have predictable language ready to use, your nervous system stops bracing for conflict. Your ASD husband benefits too because he receives clear wording, predictable structure, and minimized emotional ambiguity. This reduces misunderstandings and protects your limited energy. Now we're up for strategy 3, which is reframe acceptance as a boundary tool. Many NT wives think acceptance means lowering standards, giving up their needs, tolerating hurtful behavior, or resigning themselves to loneliness. Acceptance in a neurodiverse relationship is not surrender. Acceptance is clarity. Acceptance says, this is how my ASD husband is, this is how his brain works, and these are the boundaries I need to stay emotionally healthy. So here's the reframe. Instead of saying, how do I get him to change? Ask yourself, what do I need to stay emotionally steady, knowing who my ASD husband is? This may lead to boundaries like, I don't engage in serious conversations after 7 p.m. Or, if you shut down, I won't pursue. I'll wait 30 minutes and then check in with you. Or, I need breaks during high stimulation moments. Or, I won't internalize tone differences as personal. Acceptance plus boundaries equals emotional freedom. It ends the fantasy of, if I just say it right, everything will change. And it replaces it with, I can create stability even if he struggles with emotional reciprocity. And this shift alone can stop the eggshell cycle almost overnight. As you probably can understand, walking on eggshells is not sustainable, but you can retrain your nervous system, you can build boundaries that protect your energy, and you can create a relationship dynamic that does not drain the life out of you. So in this video, we covered sacred space-time, which is non-negotiable weekly emotional maintenance, low energy scripts, which is communication that doesn't drain you, and acceptance as a boundary tool, which is clarity instead of self-sacrifice. Now, if you want more videos like this on emotional protection, breaking the Cassandra dynamic, and rebuilding your sense of self, then make sure you like this video, subscribe, and turn notifications on. And if this video resonated with you, drop a comment that simply says, I'm ready to stop walking on eggshells. Okay? Now, in closing, you're not alone, you deserve peace, and you deserve a relationship that doesn't cost you your mental health. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. If you're in a neurodiverse marriage and you find yourself thinking, how am I supposed to make all these accommodations with my ASD spouse? You're not alone. Many neurotypical partners end up, without meaning to, becoming the emotional coach, the meltdown manager, the communication interpreter, the social guide, and yes, the therapist. But here's the truth. You're not the therapist, you're the partner. And carrying both roles is not sustainable, not for you and not for the relationship. And hey, I know your heart was in the right place, but your therapy often made a bad problem worse. So today I'm going to give you permission and a blueprint to step out of that therapist role and reclaim your place as an equal spouse. Let's talk about how NT partners accidentally become the therapist, the trap nearly every NT wife falls into. When your ASD husband struggles with emotional regulation, communication, or empathy blind spots, you naturally compensate. Why wouldn't you? And at first, that works. Then it becomes a pattern. then a job, then an identity. You start anticipating emotional triggers, coaching him through every frustration, over-explaining your needs, translating his tone or behavior, absorbing his anxiety because he can't, walking on eggshells to keep the peace, and monitoring his meltdowns like a clinician, not a spouse. That's when the relationship shifts from marriage to management. Now, you didn't choose this. Your heart was in the right place again. You were doing the best that you knew how to do, given the circumstances. You adapted to survive. Yes, you did. But now you're exhausted, resentful, and feeling guilty for wanting to step back. Let me state this clearly. It's not your responsibility to regulate your ASD husband's emotions. It's not your job to be his therapist, and it is healthy to step out of that role. No need to feel guilty. You may ask yourself, how am I supposed to accommodate all these things? All the work is on me. Okay, well, when an ASD spouse makes requests that feel impossible, for example, requests for endless explanations, perfect predictability, zero emotional tone coming from you, or constant reassurance, you can often feel trapped between two spots. Between I want to be supportive and this is just too much pressure. It's cracking my brain and making me insane. The real problem isn't the request. The real problem is role confusion. You're trying to meet clinical needs using relational tools, and it doesn't work. So let's separate these roles once and for all. We need to look at what a partner is responsible for. As a neurotypical wife, you are responsible for some stuff. Speaking respectfully, being truthful, sharing your emotional experience, setting boundaries, staying open to repair, offering kindness, choosing connections when you can, stepping away when you must. That's it. Period. You are not responsible for managing meltdowns, calming anxiety, preventing shutdowns, fixing past trauma, being the safe person 24/7, teaching social skills, providing therapy-level emotional support. Those needs fall into a different category and they require a different solution. What is your ASD spouse responsible for? Okay. He's responsible for learning his triggers, practicing self-regulation, pursuing therapy or coaching, using coping strategies, expressing needs clearly, managing internal overwhelm, repairing ruptures, asking not demanding, calming himself before re-entering the discussion. This is how equality gets restored, because you can support him, but you cannot regulate him. Let's look at the needs for a professional versus needs for a partner. Here's a simple framework for you, the NT wife. It's a quick way to categorize whether a need belongs to you or to a therapist. Needs appropriate for a partner. Can we talk about how we can connect more? I need more clarity when we make plans. Can you let me know when you need alone time? I'd like us to schedule fun time together. Okay, those are relational, they're normal, they're mutual. Now here are needs appropriate for a therapist or an ASD coach. Help me manage my meltdowns. Teach me emotional regulation. Help me with rejection sensitivity. Explain my partner's tone to me. Help me not misread facial expressions. Coach me on how to communicate without escalating. These are clinical skills, not partner duties. So if you've been trying to fill those roles, no wonder you're tired. You've been doing two jobs. Now let's look at the NT partner's emotional exit strategy. Every NT wife needs one tool above all else, and it is this: an emotional exit strategy. This protects you from burnout and protects the relationship from unnecessary conflict. Here's how to use it. Number one, notice the red flags in your own body. Could be tight chest, pressure between the eyes, frustration turning into anger, feeling responsible for his emotions, the urge to over-explain, the I have to fix this panic. Number two, use a simple exit script. For example, I hear that you're upset. I care, but I'm getting overwhelmed. I'm stepping away to calm down. Let's revisit this later when we're both regulated. That's short, clear, boundaried, and kind. Step three, leave the interaction. Not angrily, not dramatically, just calmly exit. Step four, return later with a reset. Okay, I'm back. Let's start fresh. This strategy keeps you in the partner role, not the therapeutic one. Now let's talk about reassigning emotional responsibility back to your ASD husband. Here's the part that may feel uncomfortable for you, but incredibly freeing. The NT wife also has the mom brain and feels compelled to fix, to work on, to help. And why wouldn't you? Hey, your heart's in the right place. God bless you. But your ASD husband must carry his own emotional weight. That means he calms himself before re-engaging. He seeks therapy or coaching. He practices skills independently. He self-monitors rising anxiety. He regulates before discussing sensitive topics. And he does his work, not outsource it to you. That's not abandonment. It's empowerment. He grows, you breathe, and the relationship stabilizes. So let me leave you with this. Your role in the marriage is partner, not therapist. When you reclaim that role, everything shifts. Resentment decreases. Emotional weight becomes shared. Communication becomes clearer. Connection becomes possible again. And both partners step into their actual responsibilities. If you've been carrying too much, if you've been doing all the emotional labor, if you've been trying to help enough to make the relationship work, now is the moment to step back. Not out of the relationship, but out of the role that never belonged to you in the first place. Message to neurotypical wives out there. Have you ever wondered, how can I tell when my autistic husband has felt like a failure in marriage for so long that he's actually just given up? Okay, well, in this video, we're going to take a deep dive on that. Stay tuned, because at the very end, I've got some tips to pull yourself out of this loop. It doesn't usually happen in a single moment, not with a slammed door, not with a fight, not even with an anniversary forgotten. It happens quietly over time. Your autistic husband doesn't leave the marriage all at once. He retreats inch by inch, breath by breath, until one day you realize that while his body is still home, his heart has gone missing. For many men on the autism spectrum, marriage can feel like a never-ending test that they keep failing. Despite genuine effort, good intentions, and deep love, they're often told, directly or indirectly, that their way of connecting isn't enough. And over the years, those small daily messages of failure accumulate until one day he simply stops trying. So let's unpack this in a series of phases. Phase 1. The silence is no longer protective, it's final. In the early years, silence might have been his coping mechanism. When conflict hit, he withdrew to regulate, to calm his nervous system and avoid saying something hurtful. That kind of silence, while painful, still had hope inside it. It was a pause, not a full stop. But when a man has reached emotional burnout, his silence changes tone. It's heavier, longer. It's no longer about self-regulation. It's about surrender. You feel the difference. He no longer circles back to finish the conversation, to repair, or to reconnect. He doesn't cool off. He just goes cold. Phase 2. He avoids connection even when you offer it gently. There was a time when he wanted to bridge the gap, but didn't know how. Maybe he'd sit next to you while you watched TV, or offer to fix something around the house, and that was his version of, I care. Now he sidesteps even small opportunities for closeness. You invite him for a walk, he says he's tired. You reach out for a talk, he changes the subject. You share a vulnerable feeling, and he stares blankly or gives a short, dismissive answer. This isn't cruelty, it's defense. He's learned painfully that connection equals failure. Every attempt has ended with him misunderstood, criticized, or shut down, so his brain concludes, better not to try at all. Phase 3. His special interests become his safe harbor and his escape. Where connection with you once brought comfort, his focus shifts fully to what he can master. You'll see him spending more hours in his hobbies, technology, work, or online spaces. These are not just interests to him anymore. They're places of refuge. Why? Because in those zones, he feels competent. He understands the rules. The feedback is predictable, and there's no emotional minefield. In the marriage, he feels chronically incompetent. No matter how hard he tries, he gets it wrong. So he retreats into the one world where he still feels like a success. Phase 4. You no longer see effort, just maintenance. There's a profound difference between coexisting and connecting. When an autistic husband has emotionally given up, he'll often still show up functionally and go to work, handle bills, fix things when they break. But the emotional labor stops. There's no curiosity about your day, no interest in shared experiences, no effort to repair or apologize. It's not laziness or cruelty. It's learned helplessness. He has tried and failed so many times that his nervous system now tells him, don't even start, you'll only make things worse. Phase 5. You feel invisible and he feels irrelevant. In the neurodiverse marriage, both partners often reach a mirrored kind of despair. The neurotypical wife feels unseen, unheard, and uncared for. The autistic husband feels inadequate, rejected, and unloved. Each interprets the other's pain as indifference. She thinks he doesn't care anymore. He thinks, I'll never be what she needs. In truth, both parties are grieving the same thing. A marriage that once held promise, but now feels like an endless loop of misunderstanding. Phase 6. His words reveal hopelessness. When he does speak about the relationship, listen closely. You might hear any of the following. You'll never be happy with me. I'm just not relationship material. No matter what I do, it's wrong. I can't do emotions like you. Now, these aren't excuses. They're confessions of defeat. He's stopped arguing because, in his mind, the verdict is already in. He's guilty of being too much, not enough, or simply wrong. Hopelessness sounds calm, even rational, but underneath it lies quiet despair. Phase 7. He's polite but not present. When he's reached emotional shutdown, you'll notice surface level civility. He might still say thanks or sure or good night, but there's no felt connection. It's the voice of someone performing the role of husband, not inhabiting it. This is the moment that breaks most neurotypical wives. Not the anger, not the arguments, but the absence of aliveness. The sense that he's no longer in the marriage, just around it. To the outside world, it might look like he doesn't care, but inside, he's drowning in shame. Every attempt to meet your needs, to express affection, to understand emotional nuance, has ended in perceived failure. Eventually, shame becomes unbearable, and the nervous system does what it always does under threat. It shuts down. He hasn't stopped loving you. He's stopped believing he's capable of loving you in a way that matters. Think of one area where your husband used to try, even awkwardly, to connect. What might it look like to acknowledge that past effort, not as failure, but as evidence of love in his language? So when your autistic husband stops trying, it's not the end, it's a signal that he's overwhelmed, ashamed, and convinced he's unfixable. But connection isn't about perfection. It's about creating safety for two wounded people to try again, gently, slowly, and without keeping score. Because sometimes the bravest thing an autistic man can do after years of feeling like a failure is risk trying just one more time. A message to the neurotypical wives out there who suspect that their husband may be on the autism spectrum. Have you ever found yourself thinking, something is just different in my marriage and I can't quite put my finger on it? Maybe your spouse is brilliant, responsible, loyal, yet emotionally distant, hard to read, or easily overwhelmed. And maybe conflict feels one-sided. Maybe communication feels like two people speaking different languages. Okay, if so, you might be wondering whether autism spectrum disorder could be a part of the picture. So today I'm going to walk you through the subtle, often missed signs that your husband may be on the autism spectrum, or wife as the case may be, and how to mention this possibility without triggering defensiveness, shame, or shutdown. Now, this is going to be a compassionate, non-pathologizing guide because the goal is not to label your spouse. The goal is to understand each other better and build a marriage that actually works. Wouldn't that be something? Many adults with ASD level 1 go undiagnosed. They grew up in a time when quiet, quirky, smart, or independent kids slipped under the radar. And as adults, they often thrive in predictable routines, excel in specialized areas, love deeply, but struggle in neurotypical relationships. And their partners, often neurotypical, end up confused, lonely, or misunderstood, not realizing the communication styles are neurologically different, not intentional. So let's talk about what ASD can actually look like inside a marriage. Here are some telltale signs that your spouse may be on the autism spectrum. 1. Literal thinking and difficult reading between the lines. If your spouse often takes your words at face value and misses subtleties, hints, tone, or implied requests, this is classic ASD communication style. You say, "I'm cold," and what you mean is, "Can you close the window?" But your ASD spouse hears, "Oh, she's just reporting a temperature observation." 2. Emotional shutdown during conflict. How often have you lived that one? Arguments may trigger overwhelm. So instead of engaging, he may go silent, withdraw, or become rigid in his stance. We call that defensiveness. Now, this isn't avoidance, it's neurological overload. Number 3, intense focus on interests or routines. He may rely on predictable patterns, same food, same routes, same hobbies, same schedule, and when disrupted, he can become anxious or irritable even if he can't explain why. 4, social exhaustion and preference for solitude. Even if he loves you deeply, social gatherings may drain him. He might appear aloof or uninvolved, but internally he's managing sensory and social load. 5, difficulty expressing feelings despite having them. Your ASD spouse may feel love strongly, but show it indirectly through acts of service, problem solving, practical support, but emotional language may be limited, confusing, or uncomfortable. 6, sensory sensitivities. Noisy environments, bright lights, certain fabrics, or chaotic households may create tension or impatience, often misunderstood as moodiness. Number 7, a strong sense of fairness and logic. He may rely on facts over feelings. He values being right because predictability and consistency feel safe, and this can make emotional disagreements feel threatening or illogical to him. Number 8, difficulty with perspective taking. Not because he's selfish, but because cognitive empathy is different. He may have trouble predicting how something might emotionally impact you unless you state it directly. Number 9, black and white thinking. Gray areas can cause anxiety, so what seems like stubbornness to you is often a need for clarity, structure, and certainty. Number 10, deep loyalty and low drama. While ASD can create challenges, many autistic partners are faithful, honest, dependable, protective, and deeply committed. They may not show love the way you, as the NT wife, expect, but he feels it intensely. Now, if several of these traits fit your spouse, you might be wondering, well, how do I bring this up without hurting him or embarrassing him or triggering defensiveness and so on? So let's look at a very compassionate roadmap. Number 1, do not start with the word autism. Start with the experience. So in other words, instead of saying, well, hey, I think you might be autistic, say something like, you know what, I've been learning about different communication and processing styles, and some descriptions feel familiar to our relationship. Would you be okay if we were to explore this together? So this keeps the focus on partnership, not diagnosis. Number 2, normalize the concept. Many ASD traits are strengths. And so you might say, you know what, some people are wired to be steady, logical, and focused, and sometimes that comes with challenges in communication or emotional expression. I see a lot of those strengths in you. So this provides safety and dignity. You're leading with strengths here instead of weaknesses. 3, use I experience instead of you always. So avoid accusations, speak from your lived reality. Instead of saying, well, you never listen, say, yeah, sometimes when I'm trying to connect emotionally, I feel like we miss each other. I'd love for us to understand why that happens. So this involves curiosity instead of defense. Number 4, present ASD as a framework, not a flaw. You could say, you know what, understanding your wiring and mine could help us reduce misunderstandings and communicate in a way that works better for both of us. Now this shifts the focus towards solutions rather than throwing the past in one another's face. Number 5, empathize partnership over pathology. You could say, you know what, I'm not saying anything is wrong with you. I'm saying I want us to have a common language for understanding each other. So in this way, you're removing the potential for shame. Number 6, avoid armchair diagnosing. Instead of asserting, invite exploration. For example, some descriptions really sound like us. Would you be open to learning more together and seeing, what fits and what doesn't? This respects his autonomy. Number 7, offer strength-based examples. If ASD is framed as a problem, he's going to feel attacked. So balance the conversation, and you can say something like, Your loyalty, your calmness, and your ability to solve problems under pressure are huge strengths. I think understanding your wiring would help both of us appreciate your strengths even more. So this strength-first framing is going to equate to lower defensiveness from him. Number 8, time the conversation wisely. Don't bring it up during conflict or stress or fatigue or overwhelm. Choose a quiet moment when both you and he have the capacity. Number 9, know his likely defensive responses and stay calm. Common reactions are going to include, are you calling me defective? Well, everyone's autistic these days. Or you're overthinking this. Okay, if this happens, don't react. Just respond gently. You could say, you know what? I'm not criticizing you. I'm trying to understand us better because I love you and I want our marriage to feel easier for the both of us. See how this is an us thing and a we thing rather than a you thing? The we statements and the us statements establish some safety, and defensiveness melts when safety is restored. Number 10, reinforce the goal. The ultimate purpose is not diagnosis. It's better communication, fewer misunderstandings, a more satisfying marriage, and less loneliness for you and him. So everything circles back to connection. Now, if you recognize your spouse in any of these signs, remember this is not about labeling him. It's about understanding him and understanding yourself too, so your relationship can become a place of safety, clarity, and emotional connection. Wouldn't that be great? Hey guys, this is Mark. And in this video, I want to talk about when the autistic spouse retires and how to navigate the unexpected marriage shift. So we're going to look at how schedule disruption, identity loss, and increased togetherness reshapes a neurodiverse marriage. You know, retirement is romanticized as a long-awaited season of rest, hobbies, travel, and connection. But in a neurodiverse marriage, especially when the husband is autistic and the wife is neurotypical, retirement is rarely just a lifestyle transition. It's a neurological shock to the marital system. Why? The autistic spouse is often deeply regulated by structure, predictability, daily purpose, and personal space. And work provides all four simultaneously. But when retirement arrives, the marriage enters a new developmental phase, one for which most couples are not emotionally prepared for. In many neurotypical pairs, retirement enhances companionship. But in a neurodiverse marriage, it increases friction, anxiety, and confusion on both sides. Not because love is lacking, but because the rhythms that held the relationship in balance suddenly evaporate. Why does retirement hit harder on the autistic spouse? Well, autistic adults tend to rely heavily on routine as a stabilizing mechanism. Work offers a dependable daily schedule, a clear chain of expectations, sensory and cognitive structure, a socially acceptable buffer for alone time, and a predictable division between work self and home self. Not to mention there are built-in transitions, start times, end times, and recovery windows. But when retirement removes these anchors, the autistic spouse can experience a multitude of negatives. He can experience a loss of routine, which feels like disorientation, irritability, and anxiety. He can experience a loss of identity. He may ask himself, who am I now if I'm not working? He may experience a loss of social predictability, and that feels like withdrawal or shutdown. There's a loss of time boundaries, and that can feel like intruding upon a home. There's a loss of purpose. That feels like depression and aimlessness. There's loss of autonomy, and that feels like resentment and control behaviors. Meanwhile, the neurotypical wife may anticipate togetherness, travel, shared hobbies, and meaningful conversation, but instead, she encounters withdrawal, rigidity, irritability, or her ASD husband's hyperfixation on something outside of the marriage. So now the question becomes, what happens when one spouse expects closeness and the other requires space to regulate? So let's talk about the surprising marital tension created by too much togetherness. For decades, work naturally limited interaction. Retirement removes that buffer. Now the couple faces more hours together than ever before, and the neurotypical spouse may feel ignored while the autistic spouse feels smothered. When the kids were home and dad was at work, there was a stable environment. Kids are gone, dad's home. That changes everything. Common patterns for the ASD husband include increased need for solitude or special interest, resistance to joining shared activities, heightened sensory sensitivity at home, struggles transitioning into new routines. And common patterns for the neurotypical wife include feeling abandoned or emotionally disconnected, confusion about why he does not want to spend time together, increased loneliness or resentment, pressure to manage the household or structure his way. Now, the meaning that each partner assigns to the other person's behavior is often opposite. The NT wife thinks, he avoids me. The ASD husband thinks, I need time to regulate. She thinks, he doesn't want connection. He thinks connection is overwhelming without breaks. She thinks I'm alone in this marriage. He thinks I'm doing my best not to melt down. Neither is wrong. Both are valid. The challenge is bridging neurological difference. Now let's talk about the identity earthquake of retirement. Many autistic husbands derive security, purpose, and competence from work, not just financially, but psychologically. Their role was clear. Instructions were explicit. Success was measurable. Retirement disrupts that identity. For many retired husbands on the autism spectrum, loss of structure equals a loss of self. He may ask himself, what's going to fill my day? What gives me meaning? How do I measure productivity? Who am I to my spouse when I'm always here? This internal unraveling can manifest externally as irritability, zoning out, social withdrawal, or obsessive attention to minor routines around the house. If unaddressed, retirement can trigger burnout or even late life autistic regression, where symptoms become worse with age. So, how can the couple prepare for retirement proactively? Okay, a healthy transition requires intentional scaffolding, not blind hope. Number one, design a new routine before retirement begins. Structure decreases stress, and stress decreases conflict. So, build a schedule that includes morning start time, personal alone time, household contributions or tasks, predictable daily transitions, physical movement, and shared time with spouse in small doses. Think of it as replacing the workday, not eliminating it. 2. Discuss expectations openly, not after tension builds. Unspoken assumptions create resentment. Explicit agreements create safety. So the questions to explore collaboratively would be, how much daily togetherness feels comfortable for both of us? What activities will we share? Which will be independent? How will personal space be protected? What routines must remain consistent? So microstructure protects the marriage. Give meaning a new home. Work provided purpose. Purpose must now be rebuilt. The autistic spouse needs to be thinking about volunteer work, consulting or part-time roles, structured hobbies or community groups, special interest projects, mastery-based skill development. The goal is not busyness here. It's purpose plus predictability. 4, create joyful connection in small, sustainable doses. Neurotypical spouses often want more closeness. Autistic spouses often want less overwhelm. So here's some connection strategies that work well. Short, regular shared routines like morning coffee, 20-minute walks, predictable conversation windows. Hey, let's talk at 6 p.m. during tea. Parallel play, in other words, reading side by side or doing puzzles or gardening, and weekly dates with clear structure. Quality over quantity. Not clinginess on one end or retreat on the other end, but measured closeness. Number 5, normalize that this transition will feel strange. The first year may be messy. That doesn't signal failure, though. It signals adjustment. Retirement is not a vacation. It's an identity rewrite. So why does this topic matter so much? Well, we're entering an era where more autistic adults are aging into retirement, many undiagnosed until later in life. Their marriages are hitting a new inflection point. Couples need preparation, language, and tools, not just love, to survive this shift. So, when work ends, the marriage changes. Not due to weakness, but because routine is neurological oxygen for the ASD spouse. But retirement doesn't have to break the relationship. With understanding, structure, and compassion, it can transform it. Hey, this is Mark, and in this video, I want to talk about the first year of marriage in your neurodiverse relationship. What happens when the ASD mask comes off? So one of the most painful things I hear from spouses in a neurodiverse marriage is this: I didn't marry the person I'm living with now. And often what they're describing isn't deception, it's something called masking. So today, we're going to talk about what really happens in the first year of marriage when the ASD mask comes off, what the early warning signs look like, and what both partners are feeling during this transition. Let's start with dating. During courtship, many autistic adults are highly motivated to connect, to be chosen, to be accepted. Masking during dating can look like high emotional attentiveness, frequent communication, social flexibility that feels effortless, and deep interest in your thoughts and feelings. And here's the key point. Listen, that's not manipulation. Masking is often a survival skill, especially for autistic adults who learned early in life that being themselves leads to rejection and ridicule. But masking is exhausting. Now, marriage changes everything. Once the relationship becomes permanent, shared home, shared finances, shared routines, the nervous system relaxes. And that's often when the mask begins to slip. Early signs the mask is coming off may include emotional withdrawal after the wedding, decreased verbal affection, less curiosity about your inner world, increased rigidity around routines, irritability or shutdowns at home, and statements like, I just want to be alone, or why are you so emotional, or I thought we already talked about this, or why do you have to keep bringing that up, and so on. Now, for the neurotypical partner, this often feels like emotional abandonment, especially if she has been emotionally abandoned as a child. Now let's talk about the emotional experience for both partners. For the neurotypical spouse, there's often shock, confusion, a deep sense of betrayal. Like, why didn't you show me this before? Or was the relationship in the early going actually real? So many neurotypical spouses blame themselves. I should have known better. Man, if I'd have known then what I know now. Or they just wonder if they were just naive. Now, for the ASD partner, what's happening internally is very different. He may feel relieved to stop performing. He may feel overwhelmed by constant closeness. He might be confused about emotional expectations, and he's going to be unaware that anything has changed. In his mind, the relationship feels safe now, so the effort drops. Now, let's talk about how to spot masking before your marriage. If you're dating or engaged, here are important questions to observe, not just ask. Watch for the following. Does your ASD partner or suspected ASD partner only function well during good times? Does he recover quickly from social interaction or crash afterward? Does he struggle with emotional repair after conflict? Is vulnerability in the relationship one-sided? And does he show curiosity about your emotional world without prompting? Masking often looks like competence, but lacks sustainability. Now let's talk about what helps during the first year. If you're already married and this is happening, here's what helps. Not fixes, but helps. Name the transition without blame. Learn the difference between intent versus impact. Adjust expectations on both sides. Focus on structure, predictability, and emotional safety. And seek neurodiversity-informed support, not traditional couples therapy. The goal here is not to force the mask back on, but to build a marriage that works without it. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, well, this explains everything, what the hell was I thinking when I hooked up with this guy? Okay, if those are your thoughts, hey, you're not broken and you're not alone. And you weren't dumb. And you weren't deceived or manipulated either. Having said that, neurodiverse marriages can work, but only when both partners understand what's actually happening beneath the surface. Hey, this is Mark Hutton. Would you like to schedule a one-on-one Zoom call? Okay, it's so simple. Just look under any of my videos in the description area. Click on this Calendly link. Now you see my calendar. Pick your month, your day, anytime that's available. Enter your name and email address. Then you'll get a follow-up email with the Zoom link on the day and time that you picked. And voila, we will talk.